All right, welcome to the second part of parabolas. In this case, you can see up here, I've already have a bunch of different equations. Above the line is going to be our parabolas with a vertex of 0, 0. You can see I've done nothing with the x's. And down here, I guess I'll put right at this line, is a vertex of, just like in our circles, we'll call it HK. Now let's look up here. What you can see is the first thing when you're graphing parabolas that you need to understand is opening. Up here, if we have the generic, and I'm just looking at the black, y is equal to x squared, these are vertical. Okay, if in first case, if our 4p is positive, this is going to be opening up. Over here, we'll say if 4p is negative, we still have y squared. That's a vertical reflection across the x-axis. It's going to be opening down. Now, if we have x is equal to y squared, this is going to be horizontal. If we have 4p that's positive, this is going to be opening, to the right. And if 4p is negative, that coefficient is negative, we're going to be opening to the left. Same way down here, except in this case, our vertex is hk, but we still have the generic. We look for 4p. If it's positive and we have y is equal to x squared, we're opening up. If we have a negative coefficient of our y is equal to x squared, we're opening down. If we have, in this case, x is equal to y squared, but our 4p is positive, we're going to be opening to the right. And x squared is equal to y squared, and 4p is negative, this is going to be opening to the left. That is one of the biggest things you must understand about graphing of parabolas. Now, let's go ahead and do a couple different, I wonder if I can make this go away. Probably not. No. Nope, can't do that. So let's go ahead and delete this. I probably should have done it on a different one. And cut that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and go through a couple different examples. Okay, first example we're going to go ahead and use is ugly to nice form. In this case, let's go ahead and do, let's bring up a problem, 2y squared minus 8y minus 4x plus 10 is equal to 0. Now I'm going to graph this, and I know this is a parabola because of a couple things. Number one, I have a y squared term and only an x term. Okay, I know that's a parabola. If I had just y and just x, that's linear. If I had y squared and x squared, and they were both of the same coefficient, that would be a circle. But our first step into graphing this is to get it into nice form. In order to get into nice form, I'm going to go ahead and complete the square. So what I'm going to do right now is, before I do everything, you can kind of see that everything is a multiple of 2. So we're going to divide everything by 2 just to simplify it. So I'll end up with y squared minus 4y minus 2x plus 5 is equal to 0. Now, I'm basically wanting to get it into the same form before, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to group the squared terms. In this case, it's the y. So I'm going to keep these two over here, and then I'm going to move both of my other terms to the other side, leaving space to, once again, you got it, complete the square. So to complete the square, negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2 squared is plus 4. Add that to both sides. Now go ahead and factor the left side. I get y minus 2 quantity squared equals, on the right side, 2x, negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and factor out this 2. Remember that in the standard form, we have our x coefficient is just going to be 1. So we got to make sure that our x coefficient is 1. In order to do that, I need to factor out a 2. In order to factor out that 2, really it's division. I'm going to divide basically both these terms by 2 and show it out front as the product. So 2x divided by 2 is x. Negative 1 divided by 2 is negative 1/2. Yeah, that's ugly, but we got it. So now I have it in nice form. Okay, so let me go ahead and see if I can't copy this, at least this part. So cut, Let's go ahead and delete all this, delete, and then go ahead and hit paste and move this up to the top. Okay, so now I have this part. Let me make it a little, let me make it, there we go. I'll just leave it like that. We can deal with it. So let's go ahead and graph this. Now remember, my vertex, before I even do that, let's look at which direction, just like we talked about before. I have x equals y squared, which is kind of weird, so that's horizontal. Because this 2 is positive, it's going to be opening to the right. So I'm going to make a little note and put my graph right there. Now let's get my vertex, opposite of x, so positive 1/2, opposite of my y term, positive 2. Now my p is going to be, or 4p is going to be equal to 2 in this case. So obviously p is going to be equal to, divide both sides by 4, 1/2. Okay, so now in order to graph this, let's go ahead and try to make a nice little graph down here. In order to graph this, we'll go ahead and graph. I'm going to make it a little bit wider so that we can see it. There we go. My vertex of 1/2, positive 2. Okay, and I'm going to be opening to the right. I might go into this a little bit. Okay, so this is going to be my vertex. I go right 1/2 here to get to my focus point. I go left 1/2 to get to my directrix. So my directrix is going to be x is equal to 0. My focus is going to be, remember that's a point, is going to be 1, 2. Okay, so now the last thing to do is to go ahead and find my focal width. Remember, my focal width is going to be 2p. Well, 2p is 1, so from my focus, I'm going to go up 1. So let's go up 1 here, down 1 here. Those are 2 points on my graph, and I go ahead and graph it through the vertex through those 2 points. And that's graphing probably a pretty ugly looking initially graph, but it's not too bad. Now, let's go back to this equation here. We could put it into x is equal to y squared or something else, which, you know, if we were to sit there and say, okay, well, let's just double check. 1, 1, is that a point on this graph? Well, if I go back all the way to my original one, which I can't remember what it is, but let's go to this one. If I put in 1 here, and that's the bell for the next period, if I put 1 in here, is this true? Well, I'm sorry, duh. Put 1 in here. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. So if I look at this, 1 minus 1/2 is 1/2. 1/2 times 2 is 1. That is a true statement, which means that point is on there. And that's something you can always do. So that's kind of an example of just which way is it opening, and then specifically just taking one from ugly form, making it nice, and then graphing it. And that should conclude our video.